Hi, and welcome to a new screencast on GlassFish 3.1, specifically Milestone 4 and the Applicationscoped resources feature. Applicationscoped resources are bound to a given module. This means that the deploy action actually creates the resource, while undeploying destroys that resource. Resources cannot be referenced from other applications, and this also provides some performance isolation. So looking at an ER file here, which we will deploy to GlassFish 3.1, we see that there's a GlassFish resources.xml file, which defines a number of resources. So these resources are actually scoped and associated, if you will, with the ER itself. So you see a connection pool, a JDBC resource, yet another connection pool with a name. We'll get back to where the name comes from, and yet another JDBC resource. Now if we drill down the ER file, we see that there's an EJB module and a web module. Each of them also have GlassFish resource files definitions. So in this one, there's a connection pool, a JDBC resource, an admin object, another connection pool, and yet another JDBC resource. And similarly, in the web app, in the WAR file, we see that there is also a file defining resources for GlassFish, and specifically for that web application. So these are connection pools and JDBC resources associated with the web app. So let's deploy this application to GlassFish 3.1 Milestone 4. So we have GlassFish running, and now we can list the application and see that we have our resources app application and this connector deployed. If we list the applications with the -- resources option, we see that there's a number of resources bound to each of the modules, and these start with the Java column app prefix, which comes from Java E6, which has standardized JNDI names. Now the next thing we want to do is look at the subcomponents. So in each, so the connector doesn't have one, but the ER file, as we've seen, has an EJB connector and the web module. And if we combine subcomponents with resources, those two options, we see all the resources that are bound to each of the modules. And we see that there's no conflict here between two separate connection pools, monitoring dash pool, since they're bound to different modules. So let's try to ping those using the -- app name and -- module name options and ping that connection pool. And we ping successfully. Let's try to ping this other pool, which has the same name, but which is bound to the web app. And similarly here we have a successful ping. Now let's run some tests here. Which should take only a short while. And now the test that we have the test running, we can actually start gathering some monitoring data, which we can get through the dotted notation. So server.applications.appscoped resources app.star and grep for whatever we're interested in. So this should return a number of statistics that were generated after running the test. So the next thing we would want to do here is to flush a connection pool, still use that app name option, and the module name option as well. And Java column module is the prefix we use here. We can flush the same connection pool in the other module as well. Now let's disable the application. Remember, the resources are bound to the application, so disabling the application actually disables the resources themselves. So if we try to ping again, we cannot get to the database, and same goes for both connection pools, EJB module and web app, and both fail. Now let's re-enable those again. So another thing we can do is, using the dotted notation, get for the resource of a given app, say the JDBC connection pool and for that pool, the max pool size. So this returns the default, which is 32, but we can set that value to something different, say 500 for example. So we've set that resource option. Now we can redeploy the EAR file with a property which preserves the scoped resources, pretty much like we can preserve sessions across redeploys. We can preserve those resources that are scoped to the app. And if we try to get the max pool size, we see that the value 500 has been preserved. So that concludes this screencast. Please go to glassfish.org, download your copy of GlassFish, and give us feedback. Thanks for watching this.